It's often said that while children can't pick their fathers, mothers have that power of choice. In this particular instance, that choice proved catastrophic. Jesse McFadden, a man with a disturbing record of sexual offenses and a rape conviction, was presented with an opportunity to become a paternal figure to three adolescents. Yet, when his court date arrived, he was nowhere to be found. Law enforcement later made a chilling discovery at his residence: 7 victims, each with fatal gunshot wounds to the head, and 2 showing evidence of sexual assault. As you follow this story, you'll be left to draw your own conclusions about how such a horrific event could unfold. Be warned, this is a case that will leave an indelible mark on your memory. The events unfolded roughly a year ago in Henrietta, Oklahoma, centering around Holly McFadden. At 35, she was a beautiful mother raising 3 teenagers: 13-year-old Tiffany, 17-year-old Riley Allen, and 15-year-old Michael Mayo. Though the children had different biological fathers, they all regarded Tiffany's father, Joe, as their dad. Joe wasn't merely present in their lives, he was their foundation. His marriage to Holly had lasted 13 years before they divorced, and he'd been there for Riley since she was just learning to walk. The dissolution of the marriage didn't diminish Joe's devotion to the children. He treated them as if they were his own flesh and blood. His intention was to legally adopt both Michael and Riley, but fate had other plans. Holly embarked on a new chapter when she married Jesse McFadden on May 26, 2012. This decision would mark the beginning of their descent into darkness. From an outsider's perspective, they appeared to be living an idyllic life, a successful marriage with a harmoniously blended family. However, no one could have anticipated the shocking revelations about Jesse that would surface just 1 year into their marriage. To this day, it remains uncertain whether Holly was aware of his background before they wed. What has been confirmed is that her mother uncovered Jesse's troubling past several months before the tragedy struck. We'll explore these disturbing details shortly. Jesse McFadden's story began in Kansas, where he left the education system after completing 9th grade. His first brush with the law occurred in Mallister in 2002, involving underage alcohol possession. He later confessed to embezzling over $80,000 from his grandfather, resulting in a felony grand larceny conviction. The following year brought 2 arrests for driving with a suspended license. And more seriously, Jesse was apprehended for sexually motivated assault on a 17-year-old girl at knife point. He was subsequently convicted of this crime and received a 20-year prison sentence. During his incarceration, Jesse's first cell phone violation occurred when a woman reported receiving inappropriate sexual messages from him over a 3-month period in 2013. His second cell phone incident in 2016 proved even more disturbing. Upon confiscating the device, authorities uncovered explicit conversations, videos, and photographs involving a 16-year-old girl named Caitlin. The discovery came after Caitlin's grandfather alerted prison officials to their interactions. A Department of Corrections investigator's affidavit detailed accusations against Jesse for sending graphic content to Caitlin and displaying manipulative conduct. Although Jesse was required to serve 85% of his sentence, his exemplary work and educational performance evaluations initially qualified him for early release. However, the contraband cell phone incidents temporarily revoked this privilege before he was ultimately released in October 2020. Jeanette, who endured the devastating loss of 4 family members, shared memories of her daughter and grandchildren. She portrayed Holly as an exceptional mother whose protective nature and boundless love for her children defined her character. Regarding Jesse, a swift death seemed too lenient. His atrocious actions warranted more severe consequences. He should have faced proper justice and endured punishment for his crimes. Former inmates who encountered him have come forward, revealing disturbing insights into his twisted nature. James Fleming, who shared living quarters with McFadden at Joseph Harp Correctional Center during 2015, characterized him as intensely preoccupied with sexual matters, noting their interactions frequently veered into uncomfortable territory. Sexual topics dominated his conversation, Fleming recalled. It wasn't sporadic. It was relentless. I recently told someone that if I hadn't been mentally and physically resilient, I believe he would have attempted to victimize me. Fleming also discussed how discovering McFadden's history altered his perspective. Learning such information completely transforms your understanding of someone because of its sheer horror. He attempted to rationalize his actions, but I understood the reality. A 20-year statutory rape sentence isn't handed down for a minor age difference between consensual teenagers. The truth was far more sinister. Confined alongside this dangerous individual, Fleming shared approximately 16 months of cell space with him. While Fleming served time for burglary, he encountered Jesse McFadden, now identified by law enforcement as the perpetrator who claimed 7 lives, including his own. His predatory nature became increasingly apparent. Every conversation somehow incorporated sexual references or implications, Fleming revealed, acknowledging the horrific fact that 2 victims had suffered molestation before their deaths. Left many wondering how Jesse McFadden managed to evade detection despite his troubling history and numerous warning signs. The system's failure to protect innocent lives raises serious questions about how such red flags went unnoticed. Although McFadden attempted to craft a new identity through his marriage to Holly and by portraying himself as a devoted father figure, the disturbing evidence discovered in their residence, including restraints, adult toys, and explicit reading materials, should have served as glaring indicators. It seems likely that Holly herself may have been psychologically manipulated into normalizing these concerning behaviors. This case serves as a sobering reminder when encountering new people. Snap judgments can be deceiving, and dark secrets often lurk beneath seemingly normal facades. In this vast world, vigilance is crucial. I was probably the most vocal family member regarding Jesse's status as a registered sex offender. I would constantly advise Jan on what to do and say, but every attempt to address the situation resulted in punishment for her. She was silenced, constantly walking on eggshells. The threat of being cut off from communicating with her children forced her to maintain a delicate balance. She had to accept certain circumstances just to maintain contact with her grandchildren and daughter. Several days after the devastating events, in a heart-wrenching development, the victims' families and a lead investigator were granted access to the residence where their beloved family members spent their final moments. The scene that greeted them was horrifying. Multiple bedrooms contained beds fitted with restraints and chains firmly secured in place. The kitchen revealed an equally disturbing sight, with a central island featuring an attached chain and lock. Throughout the house, they encountered numerous unsettling items: bondage equipment, restraining implements, lubricants, and books related to witchcraft. Drug-related items were found scattered across the premises, including what appeared to be tainted candy. The investigation team gathered substantial evidence from the location: computer systems, mobile devices, soiled bedding, and other disturbing materials. One family made a particularly painful discovery: their daughter's mobile phone among several other electronic devices, including multiple computers and laptops. Further searches revealed a blood-stained wet wipe, 5 additional phones, and more disturbing items concealed in a closet: mobile devices, computers, and various bondage implements. Within a fortnight, authorities had collected an extensive array of evidence: 2 hard drives, 9 mobile phones, palm and fingerprint samples from McFadden's vehicle, and various purchase receipts. They also conducted a search of a storage unit registered under McFadden's wife's name. When the families contacted law enforcement about their discoveries, they were surprisingly instructed to vacate the premises. Subsequently, a notebook surfaced containing names, including those of Jesse's 6 victims. The discovery raised serious questions about Hawley's potential awareness of Jesse's heinous acts. The house's deplorable condition clearly indicated long-term malicious activity. The apparent oversight of such substantial evidence points to possible law enforcement negligence. The decision to allow families access to an active crime scene before thorough processing seems particularly questionable. The notebook's contents suggest the possibility of premeditated actions and previous incidents. In a poignant interview, Ivy's parents revealed their belief that Jesse had impersonated their daughter in a text message received Sunday after her death. Ivy's mother, Ashley, recounted exchanging messages with Ivy late Saturday evening, but noticed something amiss in the following morning's communication. The message claimed Ivy was heading to Mallister and would return later, but they now suspect Jesse sent this message after Ivy's death. Ashley described her daughter as an exceptional young person who cherished animals, people, and softball. Ivy was particularly noted for her compassionate nature and dedication to caring for others. Most significantly, Ivy was Ashley's closest confidant. She was consistently thoughtful in her communications, sending messages before and after activities, and never failing to express her love. Therefore, when the text about swimming in Mallister arrived with its peculiar phrasing, "it," felt unusual, but Ashley dismissed the concern, assuming Ivy was simply in a hurry. Even Ivy's parents had noticed something slightly off about Jesse's demeanor, but given that Ivy's friend group frequently gathered at his residence, they believed it was safe for her to visit. Moreover, Tiffany was a regular visitor to their home, often spending weekends there, and they had never detected anything suspicious during these stays. Jesse had masterfully deceived everyone, cultivating an image of an upstanding individual, devoted husband, and nurturing father figure. Nathan, Brittany's father, struggled to maintain composure while describing his daughter's vibrant personality and her aspirations of becoming either an educator or veterinarian. Brittany had achieved recognition as Miss July in a local competition, which was part of the prestigious Miss National pageant in Tulsa. The entire family had been thrilled about this accomplishment, and her father is devastated that she'll never get to experience this milestone or any future achievements. The night before the scheduled trial, text messages revealed the extent of his disturbed state. Jesse's mental state was indeed concerning, as evidenced by Caitlin's account of receiving disturbing messages from him the night before the trial. While preparing for her court appearance in Oklahoma, she noticed a Facebook message from Jesse McFadden around 8 p.m. His messages carried an accusatory tone, suggesting she was responsible for not withdrawing the charges and lamenting how his life was unraveling because of her. His words read, "I did exactly what I promised I would do when I got out. I got a marketing job, made great money, and was advancing. I've been here 2 years now, built a great life like I promised with you. This is all on you for continuing this." He followed with another message. "Now it's all gone. I told you I wouldn't go back." These communications revealed McFadden's desperation to avoid imprisonment and his anger at the impending exposure of his past. Initially, Caitlin thought McFadden might be referring to some personal setback, perhaps job-related. The message also indicated McFadden's disregard for his bail conditions, as reaching out to her clearly violated the terms. Choosing to remain uninvolved, Caitlin captured a screenshot and forwarded it to Edwards, the McLean County District Attorney, as a precautionary measure. The following morning brought unsettling developments. The prosecutor informed Caitlin that the trial was postponed due to McFadden's attorney requesting additional time over a phone-related issue. Within 30 minutes, another urgent call from the prosecutor revealed a missing persons report involving McFadden, Brittany Brewer, and Ivy Webster. Recognizing the potential danger, Caitlin hastily packed and secured an Airbnb just 45 minutes away, fearing she might be McFadden's next target. Crystal Smith, another of Jesse's victims, came forward to share her traumatic experience and the anguish of learning about the murders. She had previously implored the district attorney to keep Jesse incarcerated, worried he would harm others. Crystal recalled that her last update about Jesse came when she was 17, hearing that he was under the influence of methamphetamine, and expressed remorse for his actions. Despite her efforts to move forward, news of the tragedy reopened old wounds. Crystal detailed her terrifying encounter with Jesse when she was 16. The incident occurred after she attended a party in Mallister and left her vehicle behind. Jesse appeared at her residence, claiming marital troubles and requesting temporary accommodation. Despite her resistance, Jesse violently forced entry into her home, silenced her with a sock, restrained her to her bed, and inflicted severe trauma upon her. In the aftermath of discovering the victims, Caitlin Babb has been grappling with an overwhelming surge of conflicting emotions. She's been consumed by a devastating combination of remorse, rage, helplessness, and profound sorrow. The feeling is indescribable. It strips away your humanity, you know, Babb explains. Her legal proceedings were scheduled to commence on Monday. I had spent 6 years preparing myself, feeling completely ready, but McFadden failed to appear, and then this horrific news emerged. The tragedy is amplified knowing it was preventable and should never have occurred. Regarding Ivy and Brittany's families, Jesse's criminal history came as a complete shock. They were entirely unaware of his past offenses, viewing the weekend sleepover as an innocent gathering. Brittany's father, Nathan Brewer, had considered Jesse a pleasant individual. Ivy's mother, Ashley Webster, revealed their families had maintained a friendship since late 2020, completely oblivious to Jesse's background. She described the close bond between Tiffany and Ivy, noting how Tiffany had become like another member of their family. Holly's mother, Jeanette Mayo, shared her own astonishment. She disclosed how her daughter had fallen victim to Jesse McFadden's manipulative charm. Jeanette observed Jesse's controlling behavior over Holly, monitoring her movements, social connections, and even tracking the children's mobile devices during outings. Jesse maintained a distant and aloof demeanor around Jeanette and her spouse, further complicating their understanding. They inadvertently uncovered Jesse's criminal record while researching a colleague's background months before the tragic events. When Jeanette and her husband confronted Holly with their discovery, Holly sought clarification from Jesse. In a calculated move, Jesse allegedly hired someone to convince Holly that his previous legal issues were merely misunderstandings and that he hadn't harmed anyone. Despite Holly's insistence in 2003 that Jesse had cleared a background check, serious doubts remained. The perplexing question remains: how did someone with such a troubling history secure early release while repeating the very behaviors that led to his imprisonment? The decision to not detain him until trial seems particularly questionable, especially considering how the cell phone violations should have nullified his early release eligibility. Following his release, Jesse failed to comply with the mandatory 90-day check-ins at the sheriff's office. He also disregarded restrictions prohibiting him from frequenting areas where children gather, such as schools and sporting events. Regarding the previously mentioned accusations involving Caitlin, the trial faced multiple years of delays. This prolonged postponement allowed Jesse to marry, secure employment, and assume a stepfather role to Holly's 3 children. The trial was finally scheduled to commence on May 1st, 2023. Jesse's defense strategy centered on claiming he had only communicated with a 20-year-old friend of the 16-year-old girl, not with the minor herself. Initially, Joe and Holly maintained a strict policy requiring background checks for anyone interacting with their children. Holly assured Joe that Jesse's background check had come back clean prior to the May 1st trial. Whether Holly overlooked Jesse's suspicious behavior or consciously chose to ignore it remains uncertain. The truth behind her actions continues to elude understanding. Meanwhile, as the trial date approached, a series of tragic events unfolded during the final weekend of April 2023. Several girls, including Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer, received an invitation to spend time together, though some opted not to participate. At Holly McFadden's residence, where Jesse M. McFadden had taken up residence, the weekend was intended to be filled with typical teenage activities and enjoyment. Around midday on Saturday, Jesse McFadden collected Brittany. Their itinerary included a shopping expedition at the local mall, followed by entertainment at Main Event, a well-known family recreation center in Tulsa. Throughout the evening, Ivy maintained communication with her mother, Ashley Webster, via Snapchat. However, the following morning, something seemed amiss. The parents of both Ivy and Brittany received text messages from their daughters indicating they were heading to McFadden's family property in Mallister. By Monday, the situation had evolved into something far more disturbing. The school bus, which routinely passed their residences, was notably absent of all 5 children: Brittany, Ivy, Tiffany, Michael, and Riley. This prompted their increasingly worried parents to file missing persons reports with local law enforcement. Coincidentally, Jesse McFadden was scheduled for a court appearance that same Monday for his trial, but failed to show up. Law enforcement officers maintained a vigil outside his property while awaiting a warrant. Upon finally gaining legal access, they encountered a scene beyond their worst expectations. 7 bodies were discovered scattered across Jesse McFadden's property. The initial discovery of Jesse's body among the deceased was merely the beginning of the horror. As investigators worked to identify the victims, they uncovered an even more tragic reality. The remaining 6 victims included Jesse's wife Holly, her 3 children, Tiffany, Michael, and Riley, and 2 family friends, Ivy and Brittany. Each victim had suffered fatal gunshot wounds to the head from a 9mm pistol, revealing a scene of calculated violence. Holly McFadden had endured 3 shots to the head, while evidence suggested Jesse McFadden had turned the weapon on himself. The victims' bodies were located in 2 distinct areas of the expansive property. Ivy, Brittany, and Riley were discovered approximately a quarter-mile from the residence, while the remaining 4 victims were found in a heavily wooded section. This separation suggested a haunting possibility. Either the bodies were relocated post-mortem, or the victims had attempted to flee their assailant. Investigators swiftly pieced together the sequence of events. Jesse had first murdered his wife, her children, and their friends before ending his own life. While the motivation behind these heinous acts remains unclear, certain details provide disturbing context. As previously noted, Jesse was due to begin his trial the very morning the bodies were discovered. The timing suggests a chilling possibility that these murders were committed to permanently silence potential revelations about his past actions.